Hello friends, welcome to my channel if you're new here, welcome back if you're a returning subscriber. My name is Brittany. On this channel I share my stupid opinions about the books I've been reading. Today we are talking Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Cañas. This is the first book that I've read from this author, and so let's talk about the synopsis. Magdalena, or Nena, as she is called in this book, is not a stranger to monsters. Her home has been threatened by the Anglos from the North, Americans, for much of her life, but there's something much more sinister lurking near the rancho at night, something that drains the blood from men and leaves them for dead. 9 years ago, Nena was attacked. Believing she was dead, Nestor fled from his grief and has spent the last near decade moving from ranch to ranch, working as a vaquero. No amount of alcohol can help him drown out the memories of the night that Nena was killed in his mind, and no women can erase the memories of his childhood sweetheart. In 1846, when the United States attacks Mexico, the two, Nestor and Nena, are brought abruptly back together. They're on the road to a war, basically. Nena is a healer, and she is striving to prove her worth to her father to avoid being married off to a wealthy stranger. And Nestor is a member of the auxiliary cavalry, full of ranchers and other vaqueros. The shock of their reunion and Nena's rage at Nestor for abandoning her is quickly overwrought by the appearance of nightmares made of flesh, which is the vampires in this story. Nena and Nestor have to work together through their issues in their past to make it back home, or they aren't going to be able to survive the night. So let's go ahead and talk about it. Magdalena is the daughter of a wealthy patron, or rancher basically. She and Nestor have known each other and loved each other since childhood. She has a very complicated relationship with her parents. She's willing to do anything that they want for their approval, but that doesn't mean that she's gonna go down without a fight. She normally gets her brother to try to help vet for the choices that she wants, because they're gonna listen to Felix, they're not gonna listen to Nena. It's set in 1846, of course they're not gonna listen to Nena. Did find the relationship between Nena and Felix very enjoyable. Nestor is a vaquero, like I've said, who has arrived to Nena's home many years ago with his uncle after his family home was burned by the Anglos. Nestor's uncle is a ranch hand, basically, to help Nena's family on their ranch. Nestor flees the night that Nena is injured because he thinks that she's dead. Nestor and Nena are the two main characters. We spend a lot of time with them after all hell breaks loose in the war. I really found them to be so well thought out and lovable. I really genuinely loved the characters in this book. I loved when they were fighting. I loved when they were getting along. I just felt like the dynamic between them was a chef's kiss. It was so good. The characters are, of course, the driving factor in the story, so I loved that. Helps me stay invested when I enjoy characters. Side characters were very interesting. The one thing that I wanted more of was the tias. Nena is terrified of her tias, and I wish that they had made more of an appearance instead of the off-page tension built up with the tias and Nena. We get more of an appearance from her cousins and her sister, which is fine, but I wanted to see more of why Nena was so afraid of the tias. Give the characters a 9 out of 10, and we're moving forward to the atmosphere. When I tell y'all that I was immersed in this story, the atmosphere is so good. We're set in Mexico in 1846, like I said, right as the United States is invading Mexico to take more land. It was so tense and so good. My heart was pounding out of my chest when they were attacked by the Anglos, and even more so when the vampires make their appearances. When I think about immersive stories with atmosphere, this is one that I'm going to circle back to, because I really felt like I was there watching the events unfold, and the movie was certainly playing in my mind, and I loved it. 9 out of 10 for the atmosphere. I have not read any Isabel Cañas books before, so I have no frame of reference for the writing. I do own The Hacienda, but I haven't read it yet, and reading this one makes me so excited to get to it because the writing is simply immaculate. Isabel Cañas uses very descriptive language. I'm not a fan of descriptive language normally, but the use in this is almost lyrical, and I think that the writing is why I was so able to vividly picture everything that was happening in this book. I didn't find it so overly descriptive, so I wasn't tuning out the description or skimming over which is often something that I find myself doing when authors are heavy on description. I will skim, but this one I was very fully immersed. It was literally so good to me. I don't know that I'll be able to stop thinking about the writing for the rest of this month, and it will be hard for me to not compare other books that I read in March to this one. 10 out of 10 for writing for this book. One thing about me that I think everybody knows if you've been subscribed to me for a long time is I'm not a historical fiction girl. As a matter of fact, this might be the first historical fiction that I featured on my channel. I did think that this one was great. I think that Goodreads hyped me up to believe that this was going to be more heavy in horror than it actually is, so it's definitely not. It's more heavily focused on the historical fiction aspect than horror. There are, of course, you know, terrifying parts with the vampires, but I wish that there was a dash more. I think that might have lent to the plot a little bit more. And with that said, this is definitely more of a love story than a horror novel in so many senses. I don't think that I expected it to be a love story going in with a title like Vampires of El Norte, but I'm not mad at that. Clearly, I can tell from reading the author's notes that so much thought went into the plot of this book, and I love that. I was not as interested in the romance as I was in the vampires. I think that part of the reason why I lowered the rating for plot for this book is because the vampires don't play such a huge role on page as I would like them to. They are basically a background device driving the story forward, which is okay, but I wanted there to be more on-page vampire. 8 out of 10 for plot. This book is 363 pages long, and I read it in one day. I listened to the audiobook and read along, so we double dorked it, and it is told in a rotating POV, not first person. So it's Nestor's point of view, it's Nena's point of view, and we have Nestor and Nena narrated by different narrators in the audiobook, which I really felt helped keep the interest alive. Parts of the story I wasn't very interested in, but overall my interest was maintained for the vast majority of this book, and so I gave the intrigue an 8 out of 10. Majority of the aspects in this book made sense to me. The relationship between Nena and her brother, Nena and her parents, and even the relationship between Nena and Nestor made a lot of sense to me. The one particular element that I didn't jive with in terms of logic, I cannot share because my goal is to keep all of the reviews on this channel spoiler free, but what I will say is that it involves that one logic point that I didn't jive with. It involves the vampires, so if you've read it and you want to talk about it, we can talk about it. Logic is an 8 out of 10, and same for enjoyment. Overall, I felt that I really enjoyed this book. I think that it was a little slow in the beginning, and that kind of hindered my enjoyment a little bit. The slow build, action doesn't start happening until about page 150. I found myself not wanting to put it down, but the slow build kind of had me struggling a little bit. I did stay up until 11 p.m. to finish this book, so I think that that kind of shows that I was really enjoying it. Largely, I think in part due to the writing, the characters, and listening to the audiobook. The narrators are so good. 8 out of 10 for enjoyment for this one, which brings my overall score for Vampires of El Norte to 60 out of 70, which is an average of 8.57, which means that this book was a 4.5 star book for me. That's all that I have for reviews for Vampires of El Norte. I kind of really want to prioritize La Hacienda because of it. I loved this book. It was very, very, very good. And so with that being said, I'm going to wrap this up. I thank you all for being here. Let me know in a comment if you have any differing opinions to me. We can chat about it. If you like the video, leave me a like. And if you are new here, feel free to subscribe to my channel for more CAWPILE reviews of the books that I'm reading. I will see you all in my next one.